Wow. Well, we are here today. Well, today we are here to talk about email. Do you want to learn how to email like a pro, avoid common mistakes, and boost your impact? Well, you are in the right place because Stephen J. Manning, he was around at the beginning of email. He actually created the direct response industry. So you want to learn more about that, you come to the right place. So thank you, Stephen, for joining me. Always appreciate talking to you. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation here.
Thank you, Nathaniel, as am I.
Super. So where do people start then, Steve, with learning more about email? How do they avoid common mistakes? I mean, we see so many of these mistakes, don't we? I mean, do you want to talk about the mistakes first and then maybe help them to overcome them? Really twist the knife in?
That knife is so inexorably stuck in there. I just establish some creds, if you don't mind. A young man, Sky Dayton, said to me, "Hey, would you like an email address?" Now, I said, "I've heard of that. Yeah, that'd be cool." And so he said, "How's SJ Manning at earthlink.net?" I said, "Yeah, but what is Earthlink?" See, Sky created something called Earthlink. It's probably the first of the significant ISPs. So to this date, if you are a real techie, you can go dig into that email address to what it is today and trace it back to that core email address. Sky sold that little company for, I don't know, $400 or $500 million shortly thereafter. At the time, I said, "Look how technically cool I am. I have an email address." Well, the only problem with that was that I didn't know anybody else who had one, except the geeks that we worked with, because we did develop a whole lot of commercial applications. And by the way, I use geek with the utmost respect. To this day, I believe they speak English. I'm not sure. And I do know that I'm better off sending them emails at 2 a.m. than 2 p.m. We went ahead and basically, I believe that this first significant marketing programs on the net using email was some stuff we did. And of course, talk about an explosion. It was cataclysmic. I mean that positive and negative. So since then, we may have caused a deployment of 1 trillion emails. I'm not sure. There are years, intervening years, where we would cause 200-300 billion emails to be broadcast. Mind you, we have always been white hats. In other words, well, let me be very specific. It's a hell of an undertaking, a Herculean undertaking, to be a mass marketer using the email channel without becoming a spammer. Humbly, we wrote the white paper on how to do that, which is what blue chip companies still use. It's only 7 pages on how to do it the right way. Hey, just the email, 7 pages of steps we have taken in my agency life and my advisory world, how to do that without getting into trouble, regulatory interference, etc.
Right.
Now, I don't, email me. Okay, nothing to it. I have the opportunity to say this often enough to say, you could have sent me an email, 47 seconds, for one-line email saying, Go away. Or, okay, say hi to your kid. Whatever. 47 seconds. The expediency of that is also laden with all sorts of little landmines and sometimes big mines. The last time we talked about how businesses have been sunk by ill-advised emails, relationships broken inexorably, irrevocably. Oh hell, marriages, relationships break up over an ill-advised or ill-composed email, and so on and so forth. Fortunes are made. Uh, Email is tricky. But it's kind of like emails. They become pretty much email and text mail, SMS, have become sort of the Xerox of communications. By the way, people still make Xerox copies, although Xerox hasn't made copiers in decades. But email, I'll drop you an email. Okay, now it takes a quality scribe to write uh, with, well, this is actually more clear nuance. So you read those words, which are one-dimensional, and convey the right feeling behind it. Empathy, understanding, fear, anger, etc. All those. It takes a quality scribe. You and I relate because we write so much. Uh, and of course, the utility of it, bang, 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 hit, gone. Rethink. As I said before, if there's any place the old writing adage needs to be, is in email. Writing is rewriting, which is why I counsel this again and again, that delay function, hit the enter, hit the send. Your fine machine will come, your CRT will come back and say, "You sure you're ready to send this?" Okay, I'm not. Read this again. Because once you hit it, it's like a little birdie. Flew out the coop, not coming back. And as I said last time, I'll say this again. The next email you have to write saying, Nat, I didn't really mean it that way. Well, you mean
Mhm.
you didn't write that?
Yeah.
Well, you
It's
entered
very
it.
difficult.
Well, what happened? You had an epiphany? You sought out a clergy? What happened? Okay. So, email is powerful, highly efficient, and very tricky. Which is, again, as I said, I had our tech people develop a little program for me. So I don't have a choice but put in the subject line who I'm sending the email to. So I can see it and then look above it and see the email address because I know more than one Nathaniel. And we've done some really good stuff and done some really bad stuff, courtesy of autofill. Now, please remember that email is 99% on one dimensional. The words just are what they are. Now, think about words speak for themselves. No, they don't. They're just there. And you want to convey the right message. Uh, I have I had a very good friend who, in my opinion, was greatest commercial writer of all time. And no matter that I had clients from Apple to Xerox and all the car companies, everything between, for whom we did a lot of really slick advisory work and always marketing work. Gee, write me a subject line. If I could write a subject line, I would write a book about doing that and sell that. Client, write me a subject line. Okay, I'm going to send you 50. 50. And let's run around the office. Ask everybody what they think. And by the way, if you've ever been a client in the marketing area in my life, know that among the subject lines I'm sending you, there are obviously those that could be better than anything else. And you also go to jail for them. Oh, well, we love number 3 and number 9. Okay, you're going to look very bad in prison orange. Why? Illegal in
Yeah.
50 states. Just want to make sure you and your lawyers are paying attention. Now, remember, you put that in anger, send. Oops. I'm sorry, Nat. I was really annoyed. I was upset. You upset at me? No, I was really upset with the construction outside. Well, whatever you wrote, clearly you feel that way. No, I really don't. Then why the heck did you do it? Remember, you hit that little send button, that birdie flies out the cage and doesn't come back
Hmm.
forever. Well, I
Yeah.
deleted it. Well, you may have deleted it, but the online gods have it saved forever in
Hmm.
perpetuity. There's no such thing as a deleted email. It's an interesting when one of the lawyers said to me, "Yeah, you should really take your laptop and toss it in the Pacific." I said, "Well, that's fine, but no, it is not backed up in a cloud. My phone is not backed up in a cloud." Now, I know a lot about these devices. Been around them for a long time. I still have a Canadian-made device that works on every airplane on Earth. It's kind of weird, but uh, and they developed that internally to see the limits of what you can do with a mobile device. Okay, now I know how to disconnect this thing. I promise you, this is connected to nothing external to it. Nothing. Except when one day I pushed the wrong button and I said, whoops, what happened to my contacts? Uh, do not fear. This gets backed up every 3 days. I just do it here with a wire.
Uh-huh.
And I know the limits on my laptops. I have three. I know how they communicate on their own, if at all. So I rushed into a store in LA, and I said to somebody, I lost my contacts, knowing that I had backed them up at some point in my computer. And some young man said, let me see. He said, well, don't I hate to tell you this, but you're not backing up to the cloud. Sorry. So another kid, he might have been 18. I maybe started shaving, says, "Oh, can I have that second?" 10 minutes later comes back, here you go. Where'd you find him? You don't want to know. Okay. So email is evergreen. You wrote it, you hit the send button, it exists.
Could be a big
You
mistake
can
there.
delete it. But the fundamental problem again is, as you say, when you write the email and you communicate by email, you can't read the room. In direct response, we read the room because we get an order, we don't get an order, we get a sign up, we don't get a sign up.
Hmm.
We get customer service complaints, we get kudos. That's how you know, but you don't know. You can't read the room. You know, uh, as you know, I'm very big on face to face
Hmm.
communications. I have been on
Yeah.
more airplanes than I will ever want to admit to, just to have a cup of coffee with a man or a woman who is important in a situation, to say, look, I can read your face. You can look at me and say, do I look earnest? Are my eyes shifty? Do I maintain eye contact? Do I have arms and legs, kids, mortgage like everyone else? And how am I reacting to that line saying, I am annoyed with the process? Am I receptive? Are my hands going like this or like this? Are my eyes shifting all over the place? Am I honestly receiving the message
Hmm.
the way
Yeah.
you intended it? Face to face? Hey,
Yeah. Well,
how many times have
we're
I
going to
gotten
talk
on the
about
red
that.
eye?
We're going to talk about the
How many
face to
times have I
face
gotten on the
next
red
week.
eye in LA, went to New
Right.
York, and spent an hour at JFK having a chat to make sure that my message is received the way it's intended to? And by the way, it's so much harder to say no in person than by email.
Yeah.
No, not
100%.
interested. How can you not be interested? It's life saving. Not interested, which means I don't like you. I'm not in a position to make that decision. I really have a stomach ache. I had my tuna sandwich that didn't work out today. There's a lot of
Yeah.
reasons why you say no in an email,
Yeah.
which is why when you construct that, you need to understand the recipient. You need to make sure that in that email you're communicating your needs. More importantly, communicating your recipient's likely needs, and then you
Mm-hmm.
compel a response that's relevant other than not interested. Once you have to, okay, thank you for response, but why are you not interested? When I write that email, I'm very focused on your needs, and I'm going to ask you or compel you to respond in a way that you will have to actually think about it rather than just, nah, it's
Mm-hmm.
easy. Want to blow
Mm-hmm.
someone off? Send them a text message. Easy. Oh,
Right.
text messages. I've been at that a long time. Through humility, I did have something to do with that whole 140 characters back in the day, but I most of the time when I engage someone, first of all, I don't talk to people who do this when I'm talking to them. I walk away or take the devices, throw them out the 72nd floor window, but which I've done. Not proud, but I have. Uh, but I'll be damned if when I created the first social interchange thing was called CTOs, Clean Thoughts on the Dirty Wall. The posts were limited to 140 characters. The point was, if you can't come up with a really coherent statement in 140 characters, I'm not interested in hearing from you.
Right. I
That
get it.
said, to limit your life to the 6-inch screen and just constantly bang out those little mindless messages, that to me is sort of like an amoebic way to communicate, efficient as hell.
So
You
so
don't have
back
to
to the
write an
email,
opus.
Steve.
You don't have to write an opus to say, I'll meet you at 7.
So
But
back
anything
to the
beyond that,
email.
let's go back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to meeting up. Let's go. Oh, the dreaded telephone. Remember that?
Yeah, I love that too. I love that too. So
Let's have a
so
chat.
so so what you're saying is that messages are misconstrued is basically what you're saying, because people don't have the communication skills to get their message across effectively to deliver the message that they really wanted to deliver, right? So
Well, that's part of it, Nathaniel. The other part of it
mhm,
is uh, it's it's an astounding thing for me when I get an email from a relevant person in a client. I mean, a C-suite person who's writing an email and then will send it to me and say, "Can you give this a read? What do you think? Are you sending an email to Attorney General of the state of Michigan? And you're asking me what do I think? Or worse, this is fairly recent. Man sends me a really, really heartbreaking email that he's writing to his wife. And he sends it to me and says, would you mind reading this? And I'm saying to myself, seriously? And my response was, dear Kevin, uh, glad to, but please enlighten me. You have been living with this person, this woman, for 28 years. You have 4 children. By outward appearances, this is a union made in heaven. You're asking me to help you express some feelings that she may or may not receive well. You are living with this person every day. And the answer is always the same, whether it's that situation or somebody is in a legal matter or just a business communication, which is, well, it just doesn't sound right. So you take someone who can perfectly utter their thoughts in like this, and
mhm.
then they want to write them down. Oops, stop. This is carving stone. And I have to make sure I write the right words, the right tone. And then that's when you get to see the nonsense. Whereas, and therefore, and heretofore, and thereafter.
Ah,
And you see the words that people get $500 to $2,000 an hour to write. And God, they
mhm,
write them because they're getting all that money. Our
right.
lawyers. How many paragraphs do I take that I see
Mm-hmm.
from lawyers who say, I simply cross out and say, please rewrite this in English,
Mm-hmm.
unless your purpose is to write something that deliberately obfuscating. You want to confuse me. Otherwise, and I go back and say, can you like write this in English? What would you say face to face? Well, that just doesn't sound right. Well, it sounds right when you're doing it. Email. Are
Mm-hmm.
you writing what you would really like to say? Or are you
Mm-hmm.
creating the formal email or the deliberately this way email? Well, if I'm selling, I promise you, every word is deliberate. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
screaming at you, I want to. If I'm humbling myself for contribution, I want to. By the way, when I
Right.
humble myself for contribution, I'm giving you a whole lot of good reasons why you want to do that. Not because I'm begging. You want to do that. But so the point to this is when you write the darn email, that's beyond, hey, I'll meet you at 10, or can't make
Mm-hmm.
it, I'm on a plane. Oh, hey, did you read this thing Schooler just wrote? That's just ordinary. But anything beyond that, how would you say that?
Uh-huh.
Okay, here's, I'm going to redline this thing you wrote. And the question is, what are you trying to say? I know what you're
You're
trying to
always
say.
redlining. You're always redlining my
Well,
stuff.
that's
Kills.
God
Oh.
gave Microsoft created Redline for me. But the point I'm making is you redline something and you say to the smart person, what are you trying to say? Now I know what they're trying to say because it's in
Mm-hmm.
there. What are you trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that in the way it's working, this is not working the way it is. We have to do differently. I got to do this. You got to do boom, boom. This is what I'm trying to say. And that's when I fall out of favor. And that's when they pay my bills. When I say, then why don't you just say that? Well, it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
sound formal. Yeah, it sounds just fine to me. I got it. I got it in its entirety. I know exactly what you're trying. It's not what you're trying to say. You just said it. Do not leave those words up to interpretation unless
Mm-hmm.
you have to be F. Scott Fitzgerald. Okay, or
Right.
you happen to be Kierkegaard or someone,
Mm-hmm.
don't leave that up for interpretation. One of the brilliant things about some of the most brilliant writers I like to quote is that, he said that, but what does that really mean? Nah, there's no
No.
room for that in communicating an email.
Uh-huh.
Say it the way it is, but remember, like we said before, don't over communicate, don't under communicate, don't be gratuitously hurtful, don't be
Mm-hmm.
gratuitously smart. I'm going to write this email. Let me show you how smart I really am. You want
Oh,
to
yeah,
get
I don't like
you
those.
want your email to get looked at this way? Show
Mm-hmm.
me how much smarter you are than I am.
Right.
Just don't
Yeah,
put up
yeah.
easy. I'm going to write
Anything that
something
does
so
that,
slick,
it's a
they're going to
yeah,
love
big
me.
no.
It's so slick, they're going to love me. No, no, they're not going to love
No,
you.
they're not.
Okay. So,
They're not at
bottom line
all.
is
So
remember what you're trying to accomplish with this. Communicate.
right,
Dear
right.
Mary Ellen, it's weighing very heavily on my mind that we have come to a point where you and I so fundamentally disagree on something you are doing. It works for you, does not work for me. This is why it doesn't work for me. What makes me feel this has this effect on our family. This is what it is. Can you and I have, we have breakfast every day. Can you and I go to a coffee shop sometime this week and just go through these things? Just you and I. Because I want a resolution. I love you. I care for you. I want a future with you. I wrote that for this guy. And he wrote back to me and says, you're kidding, right? What do you think is going to
No
happen?
way.
You got the breakfast, and she's going to throw a plate of pancakes at you? This is as clear as a pimple in the middle of your nose. You have stated you stated your concerns, you stated your go forward, you stated your feelings. Succinctly, this is what 150 to 150 words,
Mhm.
including characters and all that. Okay.
Right.
Well, you think that's going to work? At that point, I said to myself, this guy's paying me, so I can't tell him to go away. But I said, I thought I'd be cute, and I said, go with God, my son. So, what exactly are you trying to say in this email? And did you say
Yeah.
it? Are you
Well, that's
clever?
the challenge.
Are you clever? Also, remember, in communications, clever, cute, and funny are typically deadly. People try to write clever advertising. Well, I can show you 100 massive failures, one success. All people try to be funny. Well, unless you're naturally funny and you have practiced that on an audience, don't try it. Oh,
Hmm.
speech making 101. It's good to start with a joke, breaks the ice. You haven't lived until you look at it 1,200 people, you crack a joke, and 1,200 people go like this. Huh? Unless you
Hmm.
can tell a joke and you practice it, don't. Unless you go, I
Interesting.
trust. I write some emails that read out of context or say, this guy's looking to get beat with a baseball bat.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
in
Yeah. But.
context, you say, yeah, that's warranted. It's a little harsh, but it's warranted.
Hmm.
Remember, what exactly are you trying to say? Okay, so did you say it?
Hmm.
Less is more
It's
most of the time.
it's it's a lifetime study writing emails, in my opinion. If not writing in general, but emails, it's really you can't deal with the people's emotions because you don't know what their emotions are, and that's why you have to be clear and concise and I like the idea of putting an emoji in there to soften things. I quite like that idea. At times, I know you don't really do emojis in emails at
I
all.
did
Yeah.
the first time in my life. Last week, I put an emoji in a text message to a nice woman who's very smart I communicate with. I put a text message. She likes emojis.
Aha.
And she responded with a one line. Have you sustained brain damage?
That's
I said,
actually
okay,
pretty
I'm
funny.
not
Yeah.
doing that again.
That's pretty funny. No, you should. You should. But there's a difficult. I mean, there are so many things to talk about around this. This is literally 10 hours. We could talk 10 hours, 5 hours about email, no problem. Yeah. So, but I think a really important question for me is what is the sort of best practice for structuring an email to improve like readability and to get the point across? Because you're big, you deliver very good messages. When I read your emails, I'm like, yeah, okay, he got his point across. Yeah, and sometimes they do make me mad, but we work together a lot, and so I'm used to that, right? But you always get your point across. But is there a special way that you do that, or does it change for each email? Is there an important bit at the beginning or a sandwich kind of thing? What sort of style do you think?
Well, well, this is what I like to think I do, and I do all the time. Now, I'm a storyteller, uh, and that transcends to a lot of things I talk about, right, and so on. In other words, to me, everything has to have context, and to some extent, context is delivers helps you deliver the message. In other words, to me, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Hmm.
If you ask my daughters, who are now grown people, successful grown people, they'll tell you that as kids, they would tell people, "You want to get in a conversation with my dad is going to end up being a math problem." What do you mean? Because you got A, you got B, you got C, and then you have to just figure out that you got to add them up, A plus B plus C, and then you get an answer. I think that often when you make a point in an email in writing, that is a strong point, a purposeful point, you can lose the essence to the style. So, word to the wise, don't confuse substance with style. You're not getting paid by Simon and Schuster to a bunch of money to write that email. You have a purpose, specific purpose. You're trying to communicate. So, to me, it has to have context. You know, it's a piece of advertising. You start out the piece of advertising, say, 1,247,000 Americans can't all be wrong.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
They have all bought my razor. Now, here's why my razor is the best razor. You should too, because it's a great razor. It does this, this, and not convinced yet? You can buy the trial package for only $1. Okay. So to me, your email has to have context and therefore focus on substance rather than style. I've communicated with some brilliant people who make me upset because they're so focused on substance that none of this, hi, Steve. It's a burst of energy in words. And boy, whoa. I need to, I have a good friend who's an uber intellect. I don't understand it, by the way, but he is a world-class thinker. If not, if you read the World Press, you're going to read him every day or two. And when I get an email, hey, how's your grandson? Okay, there comes 1,000 words with a bibliography. I need a Valium IV drip to read it because I'm going to get angry. That's sad. And talk about redlining. The only way I can read this stuff is I can take those emails, put them in the Word doc, and highlight stuff. Otherwise, I'm lost. But
that's interesting.
But then my friend John, who was the best copywriter in the history of advertising, in my opinion, and here is a great letter I got from John one day. Stephen J. Manning, my title, my address, the date, and this comes in the mail. Dear Steve, I will clean it up. The F word you, period.
I'm glad. I knew you were going to say that.
Right. Signed, his name, his title, his address, and so on. P.S. Strong letter to follow. Okay, now I said, okay, John, I was on the phone. What'd I do? What happened? Well, you know that email you sent me. Do you realize what you wrote? And I said, no, I guess I didn't. Then he explained to me. And then he said to me, why don't you leave the writing to us who know how to do that? You should get a job in a haberdashery, sell shoes and hats. Now, what a lesson. Because I'm communicating with one of the best communicators I have ever met.
Wow.
I mean, he was, without a doubt, the rest of us were just pedestrian. He was the standard bearer. Yeah, I said, okay. Now I went back and reread that simple email. And it took me a minute to realize that I said something entirely different than I intended to. Stop. Put it in context, then deliver what you want to deliver in context. Otherwise, it's a puff in a windstorm.
Fantastic.
And I may have, but for the fact that the man was brilliant and had a brilliant sense of humor, I would have lost a really good friend over it. Remember, that email is really one-dimensional. It's just words on a flat surface. And you're not Dickens, and you're not Fitzgerald, and you're not Krauthammer, you're not Victor Davis Hanson. To write stuff that nuantically, it's a unique talent.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
And then there's well, that's. I was upset when I wrote it. Really?
Yeah. Well, at some point.
So when you're upset, you don't stop at red lights on the street. Okay. So again, you asked before a process. To me, there's a beginning, middle, and end. Question is, do I overdo it? You don't need to know the genesis of petroleum products and how the combustion engine is built to drive a car, but you need to know the car has to be driven. You need to know it needs fuel. You need to know the functions of the gas pedal, brake pedal, and then obey the rules of the road. Boom. That's a very different proposition than expounding on when man first began walking upright. And, it's just the old comedian routine. Well, it all started when I was born. No. That's not necessary. Nobody has the patience for that unless you're writing the great novel, and then very few people will read it. To the point, but in my world, it has to have beginning, middle, end, has to have structure. And I'm going to leave the nuance to my books or my essays.
Right, that sounds good. So I think at some point we need to explore the new features in Microsoft Word with the ChatGPT integration, and we can literally do a share screen and we can talk about that. And let's do that in a few weeks' time, and maybe construct some simple emails and show people how to actually best use the features in there. Because you can change the tone, there are so many things. So I think we could do that in a few weeks. But next week we're going to talk about visual communication, actually spoken communication. I think that's also a very good one. So thank you, Steve. Always appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you're listening to this and you have not subscribed to mondayinfluencer.com, you really should, because we are going full guns with that. We've got a lot of people who are helping us with that. We've got to ask us your biggest problem every month. So we're doing that once a month. It's and you can ask us multiple questions for that once a month, and we will give you some straight answers, whatever business problems you're having. And we will also ask some of our amazing contributors as well to help you if we don't actually know your answer, because we don't know everything. But thank you, and I appreciate you. So go to mondayinfluencer.com and check it out.